Are you a current or future physician assistant wanting to learn more about finances? Then join me on this journey to become a PA the FI way. Hi, my name is Kat, and I'm a practicing certified physician assistant who will be your host. It took me 5 years after I started practicing medicine as a PA to thoroughly dive into my personal finances after I discovered the concept of financial independence. I want to use what I have learned to help you avoid some of the financial mistakes that I have made while sharing some of the financial wins that I have had along the way. Join me as we discuss financial strategies to guide you to becoming a physician assistant on the way to financial independence. Welcome back to the PA the FI Way podcast. I'm your host, Kat, and this is the podcast for all the current and future PAs out there who are interested in financial independence. I am so excited for today's episode. We have the hosts of the Student Loan Podcast, as well as the company Start Noo, joining us today. So welcome to the show, Daphné and Shamil. So glad to have you.
We are so excited to be here and to speak with your audience and learn and empower people to PA the FI way.
Thank you so much for having us, Kat. We're really excited.
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys are able to join. Do you mind sharing with the audience a little bit about yourselves and how you two know each other?
Sure. So basically in college, Shamil was following me pretty much I'm just kidding.
The truth comes out.
Oh, man. I want to see whose story was going to go out first.
So the truth is that we did actually meet in college, but maybe he wasn't following me that much, just slightly. So we were in international relations class at St. John's University. And I was used to being at the top of my class and I was a big nerd. So when the professor was not paying attention to me, I had heart palpitations and didn't understand what was happening in this one class where the teacher wasn't recognizing my genius. So I realized that it wasn't my genius. Instead, it was the fact that I wasn't sitting in the right seat.
Oh.
So I moved seats. Like the class was a U shape, if people can kind of see that.
It was very small. It was
a small,
room.
intimate
like 20,
class.
No more than 20. No, actually, no more than 20 people.
Yeah, probably not more than 20 people. But the shape was a U, and I was sitting at the top of one of the U letters, if that makes sense, or the tips
Sure.
of the U. When really the professor kept walking to the middle of the U.
Which makes sense.
So once I realized that, exactly.
Anyway, who was he seeing at that time?
It doesn't matter. So anyways, I walk and sit in that middle of the U once I realize that, it's time for me to really seize the A, if that makes sense. And somebody random walks up to me and he goes, "You're sitting in my seat." And I told him, "There are no assigned seats in college." And that's how we met.
That's awesome. That's so great.
So Daphne's version of the story is just a little different than how I remember it. But, we will say that most of it is true. The fact that I had the strategic mind to know where I should sit. And, one day, it was about a week or two, I want to say.
It was not a week. It was like literally 2 days.
But either way, no, we did meet in college. That's actually the interaction, the quotes from that script are actually true. And after that, we just started working together in class and projects. And then after that, Daphne got her master's. We got engaged and got married after that. And then we came up with the idea for startnoo.com. And then after a couple of years working on that, we created the Student Loan Podcast because, we just really saw, just when we started Start Noo, we really wanted to give people the ability to start new, right? Like there's a play on words. That's why we came up with that, with the name. And we really wanted to give people the opportunity to start new, start fresh, start a new opportunity, and have another creative solution on the table to pay for their student loans by giving back to the community. So nonprofits are benefiting from people helping. We are allowing for people that may not have an opportunity to pay for school or cover a gap, I want to say is a better way to say, if you're, in between your scholarships and whatever else you're getting your financial aid package.
Sure.
And so that's really where it came from. And then the Student Loan Podcast was really this outgrowth. I know I'm really going into the story here, Kat, but I just wanted to share that part is that we're really passionate about, one, higher education financing, education equity, and then giving everyone the opportunity to go to where they want to go to school. And I think that's really where this all stems from for us.
Yeah, that's amazing. I am really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about Start New a little bit later in the episode for sure. But do you mind sharing what made you guys start the student loan podcast in particular? Why do you feel like there was this need? What parts of your guys' past, education, professions, those types of things made you guys feel like you wanted to start this podcast?
Yeah, no, for sure. So when we started, like, I guess officially started the student loan podcast back in 2017, there weren't a lot of options for communities of people who wanted to just get rid of this weight on their shoulders. And there was a lot about consumer debt. There was a lot about other aspects of achieving financial independence. But that specific niche of like having that huge shoulder, like debt on your shoulders, really is what it is, to get through so that you can move on to the next step. We didn't really see that community, and a lot of shady things were happening in the student loan industry, I have to be honest. And so we knew about it because we had a startup just like only addressing student loan debt. But a lot of other people weren't aware of like how MPNs were not your friend. Like you just didn't know what were in the terms. Why looking at your amortization schedule was important. Like a lot of just really boring technical things that impact your ability to be free of student loan debt weren't shared as frequently. And so we started just with the idea of let's just create a community so that we have a group of people that are passionate about the same thing, which is just getting rid of student loan debt. That was like our number one thing. And fortunately today there are so many other outlets, but at the time, like when we did our first episode, there was nothing. I think like in this space, and it was disheartening because we have users who were writing us letters, who we were getting emails from, who were sharing their experiences and how massive amounts of student loan debt had changed their lives, right? We're of the millennial generation.
Yeah.
Woo
Woo.
Awesome.
Yay. Which means that we have survived back-to-back financial crises,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of us were in the 2007, 2008, 2009 financial crisis. And that meant that if you were in college at that time, you graduated thinking you went to school, you took on student loan debt so that you can have an opportunity to maybe change your family's life if you're a first generation college student, for example. And you graduate, and all of a sudden, there are no jobs. Or if you had a job, your offer is rescinded, and you're working at Starbucks with $50,000 of student loan debt and no
Sure.
experience. And those same people worked for a few years being underpaid. Let's say you had the blessing of getting back into the market, then there was another financial
Yeah.
crisis,
Yep.
right? And so all of this is like two back-to-back financial crises before the pandemic.
Mhm.
So I know a lot of people complain about millennials, say all sorts of things about us, but the truth is that our generation is really resilient, and we've gone through a lot of different crises, and we're still standing here. We're still contributing. We're still generous, right? One of the most generous generations,
Awesome.
not to play on words.
Sure.
So I think there's so much beauty to be celebrated about millennials for having survived those financial crises. So all of that was in the background of us saying, like, people are suffering. Let's just get together a community of people so that we can talk about solutions. And it evolved. We're fortunate enough to have had guests that are policy focused, guests that have had experience in various areas of implementing change for student loan debt. And so we want to continue to expand on that and really just spread the message on how we can become a world where at least people in developed nations go to school for free. And hopefully one day in the future, everybody can go to school for free, no matter what socioeconomic class you come from.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of those details and your reasoning for starting that podcast. I think that's really great.
Thank you. No, we love it.
So, did you guys graduate with a lot of student loan debt? And what type of profession are you in as well that may have had a fair amount if you did have a lot?
Sure, no, great question. I'll start off with this one because I think we have two different stories about how we ended up getting into our student loan debt situations. For me, I was in a situation where one of the first few family members to go to college. And what that meant was that I always knew I was going to college, but what I learned quickly was I didn't know how we were going to pay for it,
Sure.
right? And so when I got to school, I was still in a period in time, for those of you who may not remember, but they used to set up banks with tents at school, and you would basically, walk up and down, and you get credit cards with no income proof, no credit history. It was just so easy to sign up for all this stuff and make great financial
Sure.
decisions. Yeah.
Did some of those tents have financial
So
advisors too?
yeah,
Yeah.
probably selling some whole
There
life
you go.
insurance,
There you
right?
go.
But all jokes aside, sorry, it's personal for me too because at one point I did have my life insurance license selling term, by the
Oh,
way, so
okay.
don't worry
Thank
about
goodness. Thank goodness, Shamil.
that.
Thanks.
but but no, so yes, I did take out tons of student loans actually to pay for school. From whatever I didn't get in my financial aid package. What I didn't know is that you could negotiate your financial aid
Sure.
package. And I know Daphne will go into that, and we've covered that on our student loan podcast a lot because it's something that a lot of people just didn't
Yeah.
know, myself included. So yes, I did graduate with student loan debt. And then I joined the National Guard with the Army in New Jersey and got my law degree for free.
Awesome.
I did take out some, just to make all transparency. I did take out some to help cover some like living expenses because I ended up working and doing that as well. But it was a great opportunity for me because I learned, and one of the things that I think are very important for me to share when I share my story is that I delayed going to law school because of how much I had to take out in my
Sure.
undergraduate. So
Wow.
just to get my undergraduate degree, I waited several years before I even was like, all right, I think I can do this now. And that was, it wasn't even the reason I joined the Guard. It was just a nice benefit. But at that point, I was like, look, I need to, move my career. I need to make some progressions here. And that was a big part of my step, but it did delay my decision to move forward in that part of my life.
Sure.
Really true. And so my story is slightly different. I had the great fortune of doing well in high school, secondary school, depending on where you're from. And so when I finished, I was dead set on going to school at New York University in Manhattan.
Okay.
It was the school of my dreams, and I did get in. And they did give me some financial aid. However, they only gave me half of the cost of attending school. And even though that was guaranteed for the 4 years, the fact that I was at the top of my class in secondary, I didn't feel like that was an adequate representation of what my financial aid package
Sure.
should be. So even though this was, my dream school, I went into another school, showed them my transcript, and asked, "What do you have for me?" And they said, "Well, we can put all of this together and you can go to school for free." And
Nice.
I said, "Welcome. Where do I sign?"
That's great.
So
That's awesome.
I,
Congrats.
yep. So I went to college, I guess you could say, right? The bachelor's for essentially free. And in fact, I got paid to go to school because I was doing so many different scholarship options. I was also applying to essays, and I was a college ambassador, and I sang for my school. I did all the side hustles that you can think of, and I actually graduated with a net positive.
That's
um,
amazing.
and then thank you, I appreciate that. And then so when it was time to go to my job, right, I was one of the people that graduated in the financial crisis. So I had a great job that I summered at for my junior year of college. And, we all had our offers and we were going to work at this nice cush place. And then after the financial crisis happened, they were like, "Whoops, sorry guys, you don't have jobs
Oh,
anymore."
no.
And so so I was like, "Oh, well, that's not great." And so I kind of thought about, well, what was the next step? I was fortunate enough to have made really good relationships, and I landed a graduate assistantship for my master's where I was able to work and so build my resume. and get my master's for free. So
Awesome.
my master's was also free.
Nice. That's great.
But here's where it gets,
Dun dun dun.
Yep.
There's the twist.
But I am in a family where they sort of give us, I don't want to call it an ultimatum, but there's sort of this incentivized pressure, I'll call it. I'm going to start calling it incentivized
Sure.
pressure, actually, to actually be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Those are our three paths.
Sure.
And so I looked at the time for all of those careers, and law was the shortest.
There you go.
So I went into law, even though I was pre-med for a
Sure.
bit in
Sure.
college. I went into law because it was just shorter, to be honest. And I had a lot of policy interest too. Like I was
like, let's not sell yourself
Yeah,
short. How
no,
good
right.
you are at your job.
I was well, I appreciate that. But no, I genuinely enjoy advocating for change. You know, there was a little bit of interest, but I mean, I could have also majored in piano. You know, like there's just so many other things I could have
Sure.
done that I probably would have enjoyed more, but because of the incentivized pressure, I ended up going to law school. So law school was not as subsidized as my previous 2 degrees. So I ended up taking out student loan debt because the scholarships that were given to me, and I don't want to be ungrateful because I'm so grateful for all of the essays that I applied to where I was given a scholarship, you know, all of the competitions that I did where I did receive a scholarship. So I received some scholarships. However, law school is expensive. So they did not cover $75,000 a year.
Sure.
So I ended up graduating with a lot of student loan debt from law school. And so my student loan payoff journey has been paying off my law school student loan debt.
Okay. Well, thank you so much to both of you for sharing those wonderful stories. I really appreciate it. There's a few things I want to touch on with those stories before we move on. I want to thank Shamil for his service. I think that's awesome that you're in the military, and I think that's really great. It's definitely something that PAs can certainly pursue as well to try to help with some student loan payback. So thank you for your service and for all you've done.
Thank you for saying that, Kat. We really appreciate it.
And then Daphne, I really wanted to touch on how you mentioned that you got paid to go to school. I think that's a huge bit of information that a lot of people don't know, where if you are super fortunate to get many scholarships, you can actually have more money or a positive net worth, as you said, when you come out of school. So that's amazing. So I encourage PAs to try to keep applying for scholarships all throughout their education, because it can be very easy, so to speak, to say, oh, I already got my full ride, I already got my scholarship, the end, right? What more money do I need? Well, if you can get more money, you might as well go for it, right?
Yeah, you can. And you can invest it too. Like you don't have to. We have friends in college that were way more active than we were in this, but there's an opportunity, like depending on what scholarship, like which scholarships you're getting, there tend not to be sort of terms about how you spend it as long as it's related to school. So there are a lot of ways that improving your net worth and making sure that you're financially stable to pursue a career do contribute to your education and your future profession. So think about ways that you can maximize the excess, if you will, when you're in school. Being in school is such a great opportunity, right? You're a student, so everybody loves you, right? People make time for mentorship conversations. Those same people sit on the boards of these scholarships that are making the decisions, right?
I see where you're going with
so
this.
if you see what I'm saying? So if you take time as a student to do some research, find out who is who, and develop relationships with those people, you'll find yourself sort of being guided on a path to tell you, hey, you should apply to this scholarship. And in law school, that happened to me numerous times where somebody said, I've heard about this scholarship that you should apply to. And that was it. That was all that was said. And I listened and I got the scholarship. So there are a lot of opportunities like that where you just want to make sure that you're constantly, yes, you're doing well in school, but also what's your career path going to be? Do you want to be inpatient? Do you want to be outpatient? Do you want to work for a hospital system? Do you want to work for an independent practitioner? What's your end game? And then who do you need to meet to get there? Is it being on the local, community boards? Like, how are you going to meet those people? And where do they sit, and what ties do they have that can help you move forward? Because eventually one day then you help them, right? That's what actually happens, is that they've helped you. And I'm very grateful again to all of the people that have helped me with all of the scholarships I've received. But the truth is that in my capacity today, I've also helped some of those people. So there's it's a huge, beautiful world of relationships.
Sure.
And if you're willing to make and strengthen those relationships, it can be really nice.
Wow, that's amazing advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that there's lots of different takeaways with that. So thank you for covering that for our listeners today.
Sure.
And then since you guys both went to law school, do you mind sharing what types of lawyers you are? And I don't think a lot of my listeners are necessarily very familiar with all the different types out there, but if you don't mind kind of sharing what you do.
Yeah. Sure. So there are different types of practicing lawyers, and then there are those of us who went to law school with the intention not to practice.
Okay.
I am the
Sure.
latter. I went to law school with the intention not to practice. I never wanted to fight in court. That wasn't what I wanted. However, the truth is that I do love advocating for people who need. So I do a lot of my pro bono hours, and some of it is litigation involved. Like last year, I had a few litigation pro bono cases, but I don't. That's not why I went into law school, was like to litigate, like my brother does. The path that I chose instead was to work in an industry where I feel that the infrastructure contributes to our greater society. So I work in the financial services sector as a day job, and I am in a role where my legal background is what they call JD preferred. So they're looking for an attorney to do this type of
Sure.
work, but you don't need to be licensed to
Okay.
do it. And that's really interesting to me because I love implementation. For me, it's not just saying that's illegal. Like, I like helping people do what the right thing
Sure.
is, right? And so that's what I ended up doing. And that's consistent with my personal mission towards achieving global financial inclusion. Like, every job that I've had has been a step towards helping everybody have more inclusivity with financial independence. And so that's like all that I think about and what I write in my journal about.
Awesome.
And so that's how I used my law degree. And so I do still quote practice, but like I said, only for pro bono hours. In fact, if anybody in your audience is in need of some free legal advice, I'm an attorney licensed in the state of New Mexico, and I have about 30 hours left of pro bono for this year.
There you go. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And similar to Daphne, but in a different sense, I actually am still getting my license now, actually. But I've had the opportunity to get into the commercial real estate
Nice.
space as an associate at a firm here in Jersey. And then I also have had the opportunity to work at a boutique firm that does criminal defense work for major crimes in the federal, city, and state level in New York City.
Interesting.
So I've had those two opportunities, but now the main focus that I have is with the military. So once things settle down there, then I'm looking forward to get back into the swing of things in the law side.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for sharing that information because, like I said, I wasn't very aware of all the different types of lawyers that are out there, and I can imagine that several of my listeners are kind of in the same boat. So thank you guys for sharing that.
Yeah. And one like sort of interesting thing that I've just been thinking about as a person who loves like math, science, I have a personal, I guess, I don't know, academic interest. I read medical journals, for example, that's like, why would I do that to
Awesome.
myself?
Awesome.
That's no joke at all.
If you
why.
want to read the PA medical journal, it is called JAPA, the Journal of the American Academy of Physician Assistants. So
Love. I will
There you
check that
go.
out. No, I am interested in the PA career a lot more now. But what I'd like to share with you and your audience is you can go to law school with any background. You do not need a political science background to go to law school. You don't need any. I've gone to law school with engineers, with people who were doctors. My dad actually was in the medical profession before going to law school after like 20 years of
Awesome.
practicing. So there's opportunity in that space to merge. And this is why it's important. There's a very interesting space right now that's untapped. And I feel like this is the first time I'm saying this out loud. I've written this in my journal. So, but don't worry, I'm not like trademarking anything. There's a patient advocacy space that is not really in existence, where people with medical backgrounds who are attorneys would basically take over this whole industry. And I don't know if you've heard, but attorneys get paid kind of
Sure.
well. So, I mean, I'm PA get paid well too. You
Yeah, let's not sleep on
we're
PAs,
all,
guys.
you guys are all, everybody here is
Sure.
comfortable. But there's an opportunity to really help a segment of people that I think we were speaking about, like patients being frustrated with the people that are trying to help
Sure.
them. And really, I always thought, wouldn't it be interesting if there was some sort of a mediator, somebody who speaks the medical language, but who knows how to humanize, right? Bedside manner, if you will, for people who are the patients. So it's a really unique idea, and you guys are already going to a lot of school. Like, I'm not really encouraging more student loan debt, but but
We'll just join the military, get it paid for free then.
yeah.
There you go.
If you are able to, free ways, what would the world look like, right? If you had PAs who also had JDs. I don't know. I feel like that would be a beautiful marriage of careers. I don't know, just throwing an idea out there.
That's
guys.
wonderful. That's a very interesting idea for sure. There's some, Facebook groups that are out there, and there are some that are, only PA, certified PA Facebook groups. And there is one gentleman on there that tends to post different things, that he is both a PA and a lawyer, but I believe what he mostly does is medical legal work. And so sometimes he'll, make comments like, well, hey, that's, a lawsuit waiting to happen type of thing, or, things like that. And about, you definitely be very careful about HIPAA and all sorts of things like that. So it's like, I know of one out there through social media, but yes, he doesn't do what you were suggesting as far as I'm aware. So I think that's a very interesting thing to think about.
Right. What he's doing is probably much more lucrative, right? Is working for that's much more profitable, maybe.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know.
Me either. But but that's so interesting that somebody would do both sides of the brain like that. I love that. He must be like a genius.
Maybe, I don't know. I only know him through Facebook. So do you guys feel comfortable sharing what your student loan numbers were at all?
Yeah. So for me, a little under 100,000 at this point. Most of it, like I said, is undergraduate.
And I can definitely tell you where I was when I graduated. Sure. So when I graduated, my student loan debt was $213,000.
Oh man, I'm so sorry.
Yes. And that's just 3 years, and 3 years of going to school, but without spending the year paying the accumulating interest.
Sure.
So the mistake that I made in law school was it's not that I focused too much on studying, but I didn't take enough time to call the student loan servicers to find out what my daily compounding interest rate was, to see what should I be paying while I'm still in school before the student loans kick in. So I would encourage people who are still students to consider paying that. That was a huge challenge for me.
Yeah, definitely. That's certainly very challenging. And I had shared my previous student loan amount when I was a guest on your podcast too. So it's really fun that we're being guests on each other's podcasts. But my total student loans were a little over $122,000, which I thought was, debilitating, so to speak. But there are some PAs that graduate with over 200,000. So it just, kind of depends upon how much they have with debt in undergrad, but then also how expensive their private PA school is if they do go to a private PA school, which a lot of them are. So that amount is a lot, but I think it's unfortunately pretty common with, PAs and lawyers. So, yeah.
Right. It's the 6-figure student student loan debt.
Yeah.
I don't know if
I call them mortgage student loans. You know,
Yes.
they're buying homes essentially in different parts of the
Oh my
country.
goodness. Yes. It was very depressing to find out that my student loan payment was more than our first mortgage payment. So, yeah,
yeah,
that was interesting to
that's
see.
crazy.
Yep.
Yep.
I was just going to say, why do you guys feel as though there is a huge student loan crisis in our country with, so many people having six-figure in student loans?
I agree, and I know Shamil has thoughts on this as well, but I'm just gonna have to jump in. I think student loan debt is wreaking havoc on a generation, multiple generations actually, of people, because don't forget Gen Z is now, like, they're graduating from college,
Sure.
right? And we haven't fixed the problem yet. So we're in a situation where education has increased by hundreds. Like, the percentage increase is in the
Yep.
hundreds since the 1950s. However, the cost of living is not lining up with how much we're getting
Totally.
paid. So incomes, salaries, and how much people are getting paid for their services or time is not consistent with the amount of increase really that education has. Like, just the cost of education, I think, is the foundational issue. I'm sorry, universities, but it's just true. Like, the foundational issue is the
I
cost of
agree with
education.
that.
And then, thank you. I appreciate that, because a lot of people want to point to, oh, the servicers and this. And yes, everybody is contributing to making the problem worse, if you will. But if we go to the source of the problem, why can you get a quality education in other first world countries that cost close to nothing? And you come to the United States and people are in six figures of student loan debt.
Exactly.
This is a question that we should just be asking ourselves. Or in Canada, my cousin was an attorney by 22 years old because of the way that they structure their
Yes.
education. It didn't require the amount of time that it does here. And let's not forget, it was significantly less expensive. So foundational issue is just the cost being too high. And then outcomes. The outcomes are that you have a generation of people who now are delaying life decisions, right? Shamil told you he delayed getting the next degree that he wanted. Other people have delayed having families. People have delayed buying homes. None of that is good for our economy.
Sure.
So the student loan crisis is bigger than an opinion of canceling student loan debt or whatever, what the Hill wants to talk about, and our politicians. It's really a bigger foundational issue that we need to look at. What's the cost of education? What jobs are these kids getting when we graduate, right? And are the jobs covering the amount of debt that we've accumulated? These are huge policy questions.
Awesome. That was all great.
No, and so Daphne definitely covered the gamut there, but I think one of the areas that I think is apropos for just like where we're at right now, congressionally, the community college being free was something that we've been hearing about for quite some time now. But unfortunately, it's been reported, and we'll see what happens when the final budget bill gets passed. But it's been reported that they're taking that off the table, and it's unfortunate because even at the community college level, we know that there is a higher success rate in terms of performance at your undergraduate four-year school if you do go to a community
Interesting.
college.
I didn't know that.
Yes, and I think these are things that are really important to highlight because oftentimes, myself included, when I was looking at schools, right, like I just overlooked the idea. I was like, oh no, I like, grew up here. Do I really want to go to community college in the area? Like I want to go have the college experience, right? Yeah, tons of student loan debt later. Yeah, okay. Next time, if I get another chance, I'm making a separate decision.
Community college it is.
But no, I say that because I think there's this opportunity societally where we're missing the opportunity to give or make the ramp into your professional career easier to access for everyone. And I think that's a big problem because Daphne hit it on the head where people are delaying decisions to contribute back to the economy after they've graduated. Now, if you can help reduce the amount of debt that someone takes on just to get their schooling before they get started in their professional careers, you're allowing for them to actually contribute in many different ways with their now disposable income, instead of having to just redirect it back into these student loans that they've accumulated just to go get there. The only other item, I guess, that I wanted to add to it is what I perceive as more of a cultural issue, where we're just really, really advocating like, you must go to school, you're going to get paid so much more, you got to go to school, you have to, you have to, you have to. And then there's no alignment, I want to say, between whether that really works for you as an individual. And then secondly, whether or not the amount of school, and this is more of my own personal ideas that I think should happen, is that whether or not your tuition should be based on like what you're going to earn when you graduate, right? Should the amount that your school costs or how much you can actually take out, that you're even allowed to take out in student loans, could be something similar to what you would make in your career field, right?
Sure.
I think that would allow for people to have a realistic expectation of what they're going to make, right? I think sometimes we can get really rosy colored glasses when you're thinking about how much you're going to make when you're starting off versus what you see when you apply
definitely.
for entry level jobs. So I think it's really important to help educate the student as well, because Daphne already hit the institutional issues that we're seeing there. But I do think it's really important to really make the cost of education adaptable. If we can't make it free, right? If we still can't agree generally, nationally on a federal level that we can't make it free just yet, which is where I think we should go, then we should at least enforce some sort of flexibility that aligns your cost, not with the school, but what your program that you're studying for will actually do for you. And so I think that the summary, to sum up my point on what I think the issues are, to add to Daphne's points about the institutional issues and me talking about the cultural side, is that we really need to reconsider how, if we can't do it for free, then how can we make schools adaptable to make it affordable for everyone to access so that when they graduate, they can get right to contributing to the economy versus just taking on all the student loan debt and then having to figure out how to live their lives and also tackle this burden that they now, have to take care of.
Awesome. Thank you both for your insight on that issue. I know that student loan crisis is a giant issue that we're all facing. So I really appreciate that. There's a couple of things I wanted to follow up on with your points. One is that, yes, I think community college is an amazing education. Why is community college for 2 years so much cheaper than going to a state university or a private university for those same exact 2 years? So I definitely started my education at community college. I'm a huge advocate for it. So I think that's awesome for sure.
No, absolutely can. Got me excited because I was going to say that, no, I got lucky. Like I said, I initially had I want to go do the university experience. And then I was like, I got the opportunity after I graduated, literally the year after, was selected to serve on the board of trustees for our community college. So I got to do that for several years.
Cool.
And learned a lot of those details that I had mentioned, where there's a success rate academically after going to a 2-year school to going to a community college. You just have a better success rate. You're financially better off after you graduate. And then you ask the same question. You just hit it square on the head, Kat. It's why would you pay for 4 years what you're getting at a fraction of the cost, and you're better prepared to tackle the 4-year school? So it just doesn't make sense. Just don't even come to me with those questions. Not you, anybody else who's not against what we're saying here. But I think you're square on that. The community college is where it's at. I think that hopefully Congress can figure that out, because when we heard that idea that it was going to be free across the board, I just thought of so many people that don't go to school because they think they can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And to set yourself up for success academically by getting those 2 years knocked out, I mean, that you asked the best question. Why does it cost so much? And why does everyone have to do it, by the way? That's another question I have.
Exactly. That leads me into another awesome point that you guys had made, was that it is so important to truly decide if college is right for you. My husband went to 2 years of training. He got a certificate. And, that's not technically college, but he had student loans from it, right? Well, he learned a lot of mechanical things. He was mechanical beforehand too, but he would probably say that the cost of it was not worth what he technically learned. And does he use it for his profession right now? No. He's always very handy in fixing things, but he in general is not a student, academic, college type of person. So I do find it so disheartening when I hear my, patients or friends, parents, or the kids are telling me their story where they're like, well, I feel like I have to go to college. And I say, oh, well, what are you majoring in?
No, you
well,
don't.
I don't know. I don't know what I'm majoring in. And it's like, no. You should not start your generals without a plan. Like,
Exactly.
that just seems like you're wasting your time and money, in my opinion, until you actually know what you're going to school for. So I thought that was an excellent point as well.
Amen.
And then another point that you guys had made was that if you know what you want your career to be, so in high school, I knew I wanted to become a PA. Why do I have to waste the time and money to take geology or those other types of classes that do not serve me? Where, like you said, in other countries, they often have those expedited programs where you can become a medical provider a lot more quickly and start practicing at younger ages with less student loan debt. So I thought that was an excellent point as well.
Absolutely. And look, the same system that allows for us to be a wealthy nation is the same system that is hurting us in this space, which is capitalism. I think the truth is that school has become a business, right? You guys were speaking about earlier, why does the great education that you get at community college, why is it so much less expensive than a 4-year college? Well, the 4-year colleges are building pools and having like blow up balloons parties so that they can attract freshmen from, wealthy families who can send kids to their school cash and then invest in their donation philanthropy fund for years to come. Like, it's a business model where they're attracting a certain student profile from the upper middle class or elite to come into their school and give money. And that's not what education is about. I'd love to see the United States go back to the foundation of what education and pedagogy are. Like, that's the beauty. Like, education is something so beautiful. The transfer of information, it really is foundationally so beautiful. And some of my mentors that matter the most to me have been my teachers and professors, right? I'll never forget my secondary school professor for calculus who took time out of his day to just teach me Calc 3 and 4, even though only officially we were doing Calc 2 in secondary. And he did that out of the love of teaching, out of the joy of transferring information to a random student who just happened to be interested. And where did that go? Like, what happened to that? I'd say the same thing in college, right? With shout out to Dr. Levenis in college, who was so passionate about the systems of oppression that we learned about, right, in political science, that he sat down with us and taught us, okay, when you read a newspaper, when you read anything, always read objectively, looking for asking yourself questions, right? Who is writing this? Why are they writing this? What type of point of view? Teaching you how to think. What happened to the joy and the privilege and the beauty of education? And when did it become the business of education?
Yeah.
That's just a question I have.
Exactly. I think that was perfectly said as well. That's a very valid point to think about. I think that there can be some benefit to having the quote unquote college experience for some people, right? They, feel like they are very social. They thrive on meeting new friends. And I met my now sister-in-law. She introduced me to my husband through college. So, I can't downplay private colleges or universities by any means. But I think that it's really important that people do evaluate, is it really worth the investment, the time, the money to go to that particular school as well? Yeah, definitely. And I think too that you guys had touched on that amazing point as well about how it's very interesting how it seems as though colleges as well as probably lenders are at fault too, that these really young adults, they're only 18, they're still technically teenagers in a lot of people's minds, that they can go and sign on the dotted line and take these giant student loans out, but that they haven't been taught any financial education almost always in high school or even in college too. So I think that that's another very disheartening point as well.
That's really disheartening.
And
Yeah.
I think you really hit a good point there, Kat, because when you think about the long-term impacts of what that means, like I know that you're in the FI space, right? So just thinking about the loss of compound interest that someone has because they are now paying, 500, 1,000, 1,500, depending on how big your student loans are, instead of investing it.
Exactly.
It's just a lot. It adds up very quickly. And people just think, oh, 10 years, 20 years to pay off your student loan debt. And you're like, but no, if you had just seen what that would do at 7% interest, over the lifespan of a typical investment, cycle for someone, that's real money. That's
It
real
is.
money that they're losing.
It is. And for families that don't come from the upper middle class or the elite, that's another generation that we potentially lost. Like, aren't we supposed to improve? Aren't we supposed to help people get out of poverty? Aren't we isn't that the is everybody not on the same page? Like, I just I'm hoping that we can get to a world where we see, like, we don't want, if this is supposedly a developed nation, why do we have poverty? Why is that even a concern? Like, to me, I think in the United States of America, there should be no one who doesn't know how they're going to eat because of what background they have, or isn't sure that they can go to college because of what neighborhood they grew up in. This is crazy.
Sure.
This makes no sense.
Yeah.
So I think we need to accept the absurdity of the situation that we're in so that people can start to make change as a society. It's just I have real problems with the inequities that education perpetuates in the way that it's organized right now. And I don't think it's intentional. I'm not saying that
Sure.
there's any sort of secret group doing this on purpose. But what I am saying is that, can we not recognize that there are a population of people who, because of things that they have no control over, like where they were born and what neighborhood they're in, and they work really hard to go to community college and then go to the 4-year college and still graduate with student loan debt, and they lost 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of investing because of student loan debt. This is terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Let's recognize it for what it is. It's a huge problem. But I'm sorry, I don't think your audience came here to listen to
No,
me rant.
I can definitely sense your passion about all of that, Daphne. So thank you for sharing all of that information too. It's definitely something to consider. And in that same vein, with new PAs coming out of PA school with, over 6 figures of student loan debt, what types of suggestions or advice do you guys feel like you have to try to help them find the balance between paying off that debt, but also investing so they can try to get that power of compound interest working in their favor to build wealth over time?
Yes, I'm super passionate about payoff strategies. So I I know it sounds weird to say, but I am.
Great.
So,
That's awesome.
so I think step one is really planning. So making a decision and saying, my goal is in X number of years or X number of months, if you're super bold, to pay off, like whether it's the full balance or one student loan, and then prioritize it, decide what methodology you're using. All of this is going to be important in what your strategy is in allowing you to know how much you can invest, right? Step one is saying, I have 6-figure student loan debt. They're broken out into many different loan balances, if you will. Like, it's not just one huge 300,000 balance. Like,
Yep.
it's broken out usually. And so you prioritize by interest rate or by amount what methodology are you going to use. And different factors can help you do that. If all of them are government loans, then it might be a little bit easier. But if you have a harmony of government loans and private loans, then you may want to think about, well, what do the government loans offer me that is an eligibility factor that I might be interested in?
Sure.
Are there other strategies that I can leverage to reduce my interest rate, such as refinancing? What strategy am I going to take? And then you organize your loans in that strategy. Let's just assume, for the sake of illustration, that you have one private student loan and the rest of them are government, and you've chosen to prioritize paying off the private student loan first because you are working in the public sector, so you'll be eligible for PSLF, which means that it makes sense to keep the government loans.
Exactly.
And so in that sense, you say, okay, I'm going to prioritize them by either the snowball method, which I'm sure your audience already knows what that is, but to reiterate, organizing by loan balance, so saying you're paying off the smallest one first and going all the way to the largest one, or by the avalanche method, which is organizing by interest rate, so paying off the highest interest first and lowest interest last. And the purpose of the avalanche method is to pay less interest over time. So
Exactly.
essentially, do your research, find out how you want to pay off your student loan debt, and prioritize a strategy. Then look at your net income, not gross income, ladies and gentlemen, your net income. How much money do you make after taxes, deductions, and all that stuff?
Sure.
And ask yourself, okay, what can I do with my net income after eating, paying for my house? What money is left over? And there are different ways that people think about this. If you've read any of the Robert Kiyosaki books, he talks about paying yourself first. So this is a really good example of that. When you look at your net income, and I'm not going to go into tax strategies right now, I think it would take too long. But when you look at your just net income, assuming you don't leverage any sort of tax strategies, you know how much it costs to live. Ask yourself, am I willing to reduce that cost of living? Is that something that I'm willing to save on? Is my living situation something that matters to me during this payoff period? Is my eating lifestyle something that's important to me? Am I willing to eat at Aldi instead of Whole Foods? Is just ask yourself the lifestyle questions. How much does it cost for me to exist, live, and breathe as a human? Do I have any dependents? How much do they cost me? And what is left, right?
Sure.
And so when you have that what is left number, now you know what you're working with. Because what you may not realize is that sometimes that what is left number, if you're not paying attention, gets spent on frivolous things like buying an extra candy at the grocery store,
Sure.
or like going to too many movies in a month before the pandemic, or ordering too much Netflix. I don't know,
Oh,
like
wow.
like
Yeah.
everybody has. I clearly don't watch Netflix, but whatever people are doing with their money, it might not be intentional. And to accomplish any goal, including financial independence, including paying off six-figure student loan debt, you need to be intentional with your money. So we've already decided what method we're using. We've already done an accounting, you could say, of how much money you have net and what's left. Now, develop a strategy. Is your strategy to pay off your debt quickly, or is your strategy to grow your net worth quickly? Is it a
Sure.
combination? I suggest people do a combination because you don't want to lose out on time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Time is the most valuable resource
Yeah.
that we have. So I suggest that people do the 401k match if you're at a company that does that. Even if you're paying off your student loan debt, yes.
Exactly.
Even if you have six-figure student loan debt, you should still, it's free money. Like, to be honest, it's free money. So the
Definitely.
401k match, initially it's maybe difficult to max out all of your retirement accounts when you're paying off debt still, right? But making contributions is not impossible. So sort of decide on the same prioritization method, how am I going to contribute to these retirement accounts in a way to allow for me to accomplish financial independence, so that when I pay off my student loan debt, I'm not, yay, I have a zero net worth now. It's, yay, I also have six figures of investment accounts.
Yeah.
And that will happen in 10 years. Like, in 10 years, you have no idea how quickly that goes by for us oldies in the room.
Speak for yourself.
It goes by quickly. So you have six figures investment account before you know it.
Mm-hmm.
And you near $1 million before you know it, and you realize that both of those numbers are not that much money. when you're thinking about financial independence, right? And so I think there's a lot of benefit to investing while paying off student loan debt, so that when it is paid off, especially if you are a PSLF and you've been, keeping all your paperwork in check and doing all the things on time and documenting everything and making phone calls to make sure that they've received their paperwork on time. If that's your situation, then there is a huge benefit to investing, because then when you're debt free, you have a very positive net worth and you are well on your way to financial independence.
Yeah, definitely.
But
That's awesome.
sorry that took so long.
No, I think that was great. I think that, like you said, starting with a plan is definitely super important. And like you touched on, often people will consider the snowball or the avalanche method to consider which one they prefer. I did an episode that talked about both of those. It was episode 11 of the PA the FI Way podcast. And with those different methods, it is, you have to kind of decide, do you need the psychological wins with the snowball method? Meaning like, oh, hey, I got this debt paid off. I feel better. I'm more motivated and amped up to pay off the next one. Or with the avalanche method, it's more of a money or math way of looking at it, meaning that you probably will save more money over the long term if you tackle the debt that has the higher interest. So you do have to decide what type of person you are. In addition, as you mentioned, you have to decide your risk tolerance about investing and paying off debt, or can you stomach a little bit of debt while you are trying to invest? Or if you feel like you just hate that debt, you just want to pay it off as quickly as possible. So everyone is really different with how they try to view those things. So thank you for sharing your perspective.
For sure. And a quick tip just for implementation purposes is separating your sort of minimum payment bucket from your sinking fund. So
Sure.
my payoff strategy involved a sinking fund that the, like, I guess, excessive payment goes into, and then the minimum payment is automatically scheduled so that you get the benefit of the, I don't remember what it might be now, but it might be like negative 0.25% that you save on interest.
Sure. Yep.
By automating your payments. So you automate payments, and then the extra payment that you are making, that extra payment is coming from your sinking fund. So you have a specific pot of money, or if you do the envelope method, an envelope that is geared towards debt payoff. You have another envelope that is, this is my investing money for guaranteed increased money, which are often index funds. And then you have your other pocket of money once you get there that is fun investments, like stocks that I'm interested in, or research that I've done in a particular investment, or a startup that I might be investing in, like whatever your vibe is. Bitcoin, do you, boo? And then you have your but then you're executing the strategy that is automated.
Sure.
So there is no mistake. You just live your life, and all of a sudden one day you look at your bank account and you're like, oh my gosh, I paid off that student loan. You just get a letter that says you paid it off, and you're like, wow, I didn't even realize that was happening.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So automating, I think, helps a lot with implementation to the extent it's possible. Not all servicers let you do that.
For sure. Yeah, automation is huge for both paying off debt and building wealth, I think.
Exactly. I agree. Totally agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing about the advice that you guys have and the recommendations for people to follow. As you guys all know, this is not true technical financial advice because none of us are technical financial experts, so to speak. So you definitely need to do your own research and think about things. But thank you for sharing about the different types of information that our listeners can find on your guys' podcast, the Student Loan Podcast. But in addition to your guys' podcast, you've also started Start Noo, which is a platform that can assist others in paying back their student loans. So can you please share about Start Noo? How does it work? Maybe how some of the PA listeners could help benefit from it?
Absolutely. And thank you, Kat, for really giving us the opportunity to share, what we're passionate about. As you heard from Daphne, the passion pours through the microphone.
Yeah, just a little bit, right? That's so awesome.
No, but we really love what we do. And startnoo.com is really an opportunity for students and alumni to exchange service hours for payments towards their student loans or tuition by helping nonprofits, right? It's really that simple.
Okay.
So what happens is that, let's say you're a PA and you graduated student loan debt, you can actually sign up, and we've switched the model now. So what we've done is now we've focused now on the universities being the central hub, right? So wherever PA school you went to, you would bring them on board to be on startnoo.com. And then once they're on board, then you can start searching for nonprofits in the area, serving for them, and then getting paid per hour, right, for your
Okay.
service. So when we initially started, you used to be able to just sign up whoever it was. You'd find a servicer, whether, or excuse me, not servicer. I'm thinking so many student loans in my mind.
Yeah.
Nonprofits. You would find nonprofits. You'd help them, whether virtually or in person. And then you would receive $25 an hour payment, or directly to your student loan servicer or the school that you were going to, right? So
Sure.
it never touched your hands. It went directly to where it was supposed to go. And I say that because we know that sometimes when people get credits, they don't always make it to where the best financial decision is for them.
Sure.
So, but yeah, so that's the best way. So I would say for right now, the best way is that if there's anyone in your audience, any PAs, any graduates, if you are interested in taking advantage of this opportunity that Start Noo offers, then go to startnoo.com, sign up for your own profile, petition your school. So what we're doing is that if you sign your petition to bring Start Noo to your campus, then we're using that to show that there's that interest there to bring us to your school. And then if you are really gung-ho and you're like, no, this needs to happen, I'm not just interested, I want to make sure this happens, then you can actually apply to become a campus ambassador, whether you are still a student or graduated.
Okay.
And then you become a person that is an affiliate program, essentially, to bring your school to the Start Noo platform.
It's $1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you get paid $1,000 to bring the school to your campus, and then any nonprofits that you bring on yourself, you actually receive a recurring payment for 2 years from the moment that nonprofit signed on board. So we really want to, like, just with the idea, right? It's a creative solution to a problem that we know is going to take more than just our solution, right? Like, we want to see, I don't know how many businesses start where they say, we want to see the purpose eliminated so that we're out of business.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
we didn't want to do this.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like, there's so many other businesses that we could have created profitably, but we're really here because, like, student loan debt shouldn't exist. Like, I'm really passionate, about the fact that it should not exist. People should not have this as a burden in life, and we shouldn't be delaying our life decisions, marriage, children, homes. This is absolutely ridiculous. So we are hoping that this opportunity, this project, gets rid of student loan debt, and so we don't need to exist anymore. And we're hoping to do that in our lifetime. So we don't want to have to do this, but the goal is nobody should have to worry about the cost of school preventing you from exploring your intellectual capabilities.
Sure. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing about Start Noo. And Noo is spelled N-O-O for the listeners out there. So you can go to startnoo.com and check out Start Noo and learn a little bit more about it if you're interested in looking into this.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kat.
Yeah. And Daphne and Shamil, do you mind sharing how the listeners can find you guys, and if they wanted to be in touch with you to reach out with additional follow-up questions or things like that?
Sure. The best way to engage with us is just by visiting our website. It's startnoo.com, startnoo.com. And there you'll find all the information you need to connect with us.
Yep. And then if you wanted to interact with us on social media, you could find us on Instagram at StartNooHQ. So if you just search for Start Noo, you'll find us there. And we're on Facebook as well, and on LinkedIn. I know a lot of PAs.
LinkedIn.
I'm a big LinkedIn guy.
Sure.
Maybe I'm showing my age here, but no, I'm serious. I think that there is obviously a different demographic based on which platform you're using. But I've been really interested. It's been interesting to see how different platforms, have had different engagement.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank you both so much for joining me on today's episode. I think that we covered the gamut of student loans. So it was just such a wonderful episode. And I really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to join me on today's episode.
Thank you so much. We look forward to connecting with you soon.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that you decide to continue to join me along this journey of becoming a PA the FI way. Please take a moment to press the subscribe button on the platform that you are listening to this on, but more importantly, consider sharing with another current or future PA that could benefit from the information that we reviewed in this episode. Take care and have a great rest of your day. Until next time.